The struggle for racial justice and equality has been a central trend in American history since the exploitation of slaves in colonial America. Dehumanizing the slaves created an institutionalized form of racism that continues to be present throughout the nation. This racist mindset developed and integrated into American society throughout the 20th century, especially within the law enforcement. The evolution of authorities treating citizens unjustly due to their race is the basis of police brutality. Police brutality involves officers using force and/or violence in order to combat perceived threats from a specific group, in this case African Americans, in order to suppress threats to the existing social order. The civil rights movement is an early example of the African American minorities fighting for their fundamental rights, specifically after incidents of police brutality. Due to new television networks and broadcasters, the nation was exposed to how police violently treated citizens during the shutdowns of civil protests. During this movement, the Black Panther Party developed in Oakland, California, as an effect of the mostly white police departments that were starting to be exposed for their ill treatment of black communities. The Black Panthers used violence as a method to gain their civil rights, which was a principle first brought to light by civil rights leader Malcolm X, who argued that self-defense was the best means to achieve racial equality. This methodology often resulted in clashes between the citizens and police, resulting in even more deaths of the black community, as light shed on the brutality and racism present within the nation's law enforcement. The civil rights movement marks the beginning of the greater American society starting to identify the connection between race and mistreatment by police officers. This oppressive practice triggered a number of race riots throughout the latter 20th century. Especially momentous of these riots was the backlash that arose in the greater Los Angeles area after the beating of Rodney King in 1991. A young black male, Rodney King, was caught in a high-speed car chase with the Los Angeles Police Department in downtown Los Angeles. Once the four officers finally got King to the side of a road outside of an apartment complex, they brutally beat him, even though he was unarmed. A resident in the complex noticed the beating taking place outside and decided to flip out a camcorder in effort to document the mistreatment. Once this video reached the news stations, it spread like wildfire, and quickly the entire nation was left in shock at the presence of police brutality present in Los Angeles. The video was difficult for many to watch and most to comprehend, as King was kicked and clubbed over 60 times by 4 police officers in under 3 minutes. The big riots in Los Angeles did not break out immediately upon release of the video. It took a few more months, more racially targeted violence, and the trial for King's beating to take place before they broke out. Officers Lawrence Powell, Timothy Wind, Theodore Brazano, and Stacy Kuhn were tried for numerous criminal charges and assault with a deadly weapon. The trial took place in Simi Valley, a predominantly white suburb outside of Los Angeles, because attorneys argued a trial in Los Angeles would not be fair, as too much publicity would be present. The jury consisted of an overwhelmingly white majority and no African Americans. Subsequently, the jurors concluded that the officers would be able to walk free without any consequence, despite raw video evidence. Shortly after the verdict, a CNN survey found that over 57% of those polled felt the outcome of the trial had a direct connection to racism. These feelings that the government did not punish, but rather regulated a racist law enforcement, were the very fuel for the Los Angeles riots of 1992, which are arguably the worst in American history since the 1960s. Following the trial, an immense uproar regarding black equality arose from African American citizens in the greater Los Angeles area. An unidentified man during the scene told reporters, "The Los Angeles Police Department is a gang itself, you know, and they just the biggest, best, and most organized gang in the city. We feel that we're being totally just used and abused, and we're not going to stand for it no more." Rioters blocked traffic, set fires, and beat unsuspecting citizens on the streets or even in their own cars. Along with the racial tension between whites and blacks, conflict arose between other races as well. The relationship between Koreans and blacks changed drastically, since many of the looters and rioters were attacking Korean-owned liquor stores due to the close proximity of Koreatown to the riots. The Asian communities of Los Angeles used these injustices to bring up their own racial discrimination to light. Almost half of the $1 billion loss from the riots came directly from Korean-owned businesses. Koreans blamed black people for the riots that led to incredible economic losses, creating a rift between the two minorities. The tensions between blacks, Koreans, and whites was spreading throughout Los Angeles and quickly growing out of hand. Although the riots arose due to the Rodney King beating, Rodney King himself tried to simmer down the societal uproar, albeit unsuccessful. King did agree that the verdict of the jury was disappointing, however, who prioritized his arguments with the safety of the citizens of Los Angeles when he said, "Can we please think about the children, about the elderly?" The violence lasted for 6 days until President George Bush sent in military troops to bring the city back to order. In those 6 days, 55 people were killed, thousands were injured, and 11,000 were arrested. These extraordinary numbers exemplify the extent of the riots and racial tensions following the Bias trial. Rodney King summed up what was to come involving racial injustice and policemen by saying, "They may have won this battle, but they did not win the war." The 1992 Los Angeles riots embodied the idea that racial discrimination was, and still is, a prominent issue within American society. While Rodney King became a national icon for the fight against police brutality and black equality, after the tension and focus on the city of the Angels had died down, he lived quietly in his later years of life. While contemplating his final years, King said, "When I leave here, my final day on this earth is up. I want to live in peace. I want to have peace in my heart." Although King felt the nation's law enforcement had taken a great leap in racial justice since his beating, he admitted he is not naive about race in modern society. He believes it is still important to educate his nephews and other young black citizens of the unavoidable vulnerability African Americans are subject to in American society. The Los Angeles riots of 1992 took a stand for racial equality and justice in America's law enforcement. This iconic fight for the African American race successfully changed the face of the LAPD. Within the department, white males are now outnumbered by Latino, Asian, African American, and female officers. These officers are now held to strict standards that reflect the scandal the department faced in 1992. Racial discrimination and lack of integrity is not tolerated within the station. Chief Parks of the Los Angeles Police Department, during an initiation ceremony in 2002, told the new recruits, "If you do something that tarnishes the badge, it tarnishes your family. It tarnishes this department, it tarnishes the city. It is a privilege to wear the LAPD uniform and badge. It is not a right, it is not a guarantee." The riots were ultimately caused by unjust treatment of African American citizens, but also developed into taking a stand against poverty, economic inferiority, and general disenfranchisement among black citizens in American society. The struggle for equality is ongoing, exemplified by organizations today, such as the Black Lives Matter movement, that fight for the same key principles as the Los Angeles rioters. The 1992 riots gave a preview of the tensions that would continue to develop among the multi-ethnic and diverse nation America was becoming. The riots gave a foundation for the Black Lives Matter movement that actively encourages people of color to fight for equal treatment in everyday situations.
They all right.
They're doing a good job.
They all right. They go to do their job.
10 years ago, if I was talking to guys your age 10 years ago, most of them would tell me, like, they really hated the cops. I don't hear that from you guys.
Yeah, my opinion, I used to hate the police too.
Yeah.
But I've come to the reality where I just do my thing every day. And like I say, they're out there risking their lives,
Yeah.